National companies and the violation of the UN embargo prohibiting sale of arms to the apartheid government dominated discussions at the People's Tribunal on Economic Crimes underway in Johannesburg. Speakers say while South Africa has the legal framework to take on big corporates, it is the lack of political will to prosecute that lets them off without any repercussions.
The second day of the tribunal brought under the spotlight the role of the European bank, Credit Bank, in aiding and abetting the apartheid government. It's alleged that despite the UN embargo, the bank helped launder money to buy arms that were used to oppress black South Africans.
Through our research, we've been able to show that for a period of almost 20 years, from the late 1970s to the early 90s, during the sanctions period when it was illegal to sell weapons to the apartheid regime, Credit Bank, we believe, actively worked with the apartheid government and with Armscor to set up an international money laundering network with more than 100 front companies that we've been able to identify, almost 900 bank accounts across the world, and the bank helped to conceptualize the architecture.
Former ANC MP Andrew Feinstein told the tribunal that across the globe the arms trade is riddled with corruption. He says he was forced out of parliament because he pushed to investigate irregularities in the South African arms deal.
I was called in by numerous people, starting from close colleagues with whom I was friendly, to the Speaker of Parliament at the time, the Secretary General of my party, and the Presidency, to try and persuade me to halt the committee's investigation. My refusal led to my being removed from the committee and then being forced out of Parliament.
Experts say there is no international body that can hold banks accountable for being complicit in crimes against humanity. The one option available for individuals is provided for by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Regulations.
There's no judge, there's no body, there's no entity, there's no regulatory authority, there is no one holding banks to account. There are loose principles, but they're entirely voluntary. There are notions, there are the Basel principles, there are of course a number of voluntary mechanisms or international principles to which you can sign up, and generally there is an astounding lack of compliance with those actual principles. So we're left in an accountability vacuum.
Others say another challenge to hold multinationals accountable lies in the lack of political will to prosecute.
Unless those in power have the appetite to permit accountability happening, there's going to be a huge challenge. So I think what certainly international organizations attempt to do is firstly to make sure the legal framework is in place to address the challenge of international economic crime. So I rattled off a few instruments, and I think that the instruments, the legal instruments, are certainly there. The legal framework in South Africa, I would almost say, is second to none.
The tribunal will on Monday focus on allegations of corruption in the arms deal and the Seriti Commission that investigated allegations of corruption in the deal. The tribunal says those implicated in discussions will be given a right of response before it finalizes its work. SABC News, Johannesburg.
Schools have been open for nearly 2 weeks now, but some pupils in the Eastern Cape have not had a day's class yet. School placement and available space remains a nightmare